It's happening, people. Trump's cracking down, Harvard's panicking, and RFK, he just exposed what's been poisoning your food pantry. The left, they're losing that kung fu grip and fast. Before we dive in, if you think children should be protected and not indoctrinated, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notifications bell so you don't miss the facts that the media won't touch. Let's get into it. Roll that tape.
Hurry up.
Those private institutions have to accept they're not entitled to federal funds. And that's the decision Harvard's going to make. Do they want to continue down the path they've gone where they don't protect Jewish students, where they embrace anti-Semitism, or do they want to work with the Trump administration and we all work forward together? I hope they choose the latter path, but yesterday's decision was not promising.
Other than the left's morals and values being totally upside down, tell me what this response means to you. Trump says, protect the Jewish students or lose funding. You know what Harvard's response was? File a lawsuit. And somehow this is supposed to make them the good guys. Nah, I don't think so, people. This is the accountability that they've been avoiding for decades. But now it's time to check in, baby. Welcome to the party. Welcome to reality. Bienvenidos. In this next feed, Harvard President Alan Garber responds.
In an open letter announcing the lawsuit, Harvard President Alan Garber wrote in part, "As a Jew and as an American, I know very well that there are valid concerns about rising anti-Semitism. To address it effectively requires understanding, intention, and vigilance. Harvard takes that work seriously."
If that's the gospel that you want to stand on, tell me why Jewish students are being chased off campus while the administrators are doing PR statements. Anti-Semitism has skyrocketed, and what are they offering? Quotes. In this next clip, Democrats defend Harvard.
This as Democrats praise the pushback against Trump.
Universities need to stand up, and I'm so proud of President Garber at Harvard University for standing up. And I'm proud of the president at Princeton, who also has been standing up to the Trump administration.
President Garber says that Harvard has taken many steps to address anti-Semitism. He has also signed a letter, along with more than 150 other university and college presidents. They're all denouncing President Trump's demand.
The bigger picture, if he gets away with this, he can start going down the road with future universities. And it's also part of a bigger strategy that you see Donald Trump doing, where anyone who disagrees with him, silencing the Associated Press, taking a strong stance against universities, trying to take away the C3 status of some of these environmental organizations that he's working on this week. I mean, this is a picture, a broader picture that he's trying to paint of, if you don't agree with me, I'm going to figure out a way to silence you, and that's the problem.
You got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I assume you all know what's been going on these campuses. They are chasing the Jewish kids around the campuses. They are terrorizing them. They are violating their civil rights. The administration believes they have violated their federally protected rights. This all goes back to the core issue. The Ivy League schools and a lot of universities did not stand up for Jewish students when they should have, and when they were warned by the U.S. Congress last year. They should have done it then. Now they're locked in these battles now. You all say these campuses should fight back against Trump. Who are they fighting for? The people who are terrorizing the Jewish kids? I hope that's not what you mean. I think Trump is standing up for these Jewish students in a good way, and I hope he prevails.
This is irrelevant from that, Scott.
It is not.
We
this
obviously
is the core issue.
They say they're proud to stand up for Trump, but what about the students? What about standing up for them? What about all the students that have been affected by this? You had one job and one job only, and that was to protect the students, and not just the ones that fit your narrative. In this next excerpt, Trump's admin responds to the lawsuit.
Responds to Harvard's lawsuit.
Sure. Well, the president has made it quite clear that it's Harvard who has put themselves in the position to lose their own funding by not obeying federal law. And we expect all colleges and universities who are receiving taxpayer funds to abide by federal law. It's quite simple. And the president made it clear he's not going to tolerate violations of federal law. He's not going to tolerate illegal harassment and violence towards Jewish American students or students of any faith on our campuses across the country. And so we will be responding to the lawsuit in court. And again, it's quite simple. If you want federal dollars, obey federal law.
President Trump, he drew the line, and they freaked out and they panicked. And that's not what you call fascism in my book. I'd say that's enforcing the law. Play stupid games, and guess what? You will lose federal funds. Watch this next clip of an MSNBC pundit denying anti Semitism.
Trump administration is making claims about things that in many ways violate common sense. It's a pretext in order to attack what they consider to be their political enemies. Donald Trump does not care about anti-Semitism, and I don't think any reasonable person would believe he does. He has people in his inner circle that give Nazi salutes. He's dined with white supremacists. And they have said over and over again that there's an issue of anti-Semitism, acute anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus in a way that demands some kind of civil rights intervention. But the acute anti-Semitism does not exist on Harvard's campus. To the extent that there might be anti-Semitism, just like any other bigotry that might exist at Harvard, like it would exist anywhere, that's something that Harvard could take steps to redress, but is not something that requires the cancellation of things like cancer funding for cancer research or research on Alzheimer's disease or all the other things that Donald Trump has tried to attack for political purposes.
The ADL says anti-Semitism is up 893% over the last decade. So either they're blind or lying, and Harvard, they appear to be both. That is not a spike. I'd surely call that an epidemic. And these Ivy League elites still somehow think they're the victims. In this next feed, SCOTUS signals support for parental opt-outs.
The Supreme Court's conservative majority signaled today that it will require schools to provide opt-outs for parents who have objections to LGBTQ books read in elementary schools. If they go that route, it would continue the court's years-long push to expand religious rights.
It looks like the justices, from the oral arguments that went for an unusually intense, passionate 2.5 hours this morning, Brianna. It looks like they're going to rule with the parents who have challenged the Montgomery County, Maryland School District over books like The Knight and the Prince or Uncle Bobby's Wedding that the school had said there's no opt-out provision, and during the course of the Q&A this morning, it emerged that really Montgomery County stands alone in not having any kind of opt-out provision.
The parents are finally getting a say. Nope, not my kid. If your classroom turns into a gender identity seminar, you can expect parents to show up and in droves, and now the Supreme Court's behind them. In this next feed, we've got the school board's justification. The Montgomery County District in 2022 approved a handful of storybooks that feature lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender characters as part of its English language arts curriculum in order to better represent the diversity of families in the county. The storybooks do not instruct about gender or sexuality and are available for teachers to use, alongside the many books already in the curriculum that feature heterosexual characters in traditional gender roles, the district said in a court filing. That's the bait. They say, no, it's just representation, but kids are like sponges. All they need to do is see the behavior modeled. They don't need it taught, and they'll soak it up like a sponge. That's how it sticks. This next clip, it shows an example story.
So do you believe, though, that there's an appropriate age to have a discussion? These are 4 to 6-year-olds, and they're being read, and this is out loud in the classroom, not just, oh, this is a book on the shelf in the library. If there's a particular child that, you might want to read this with, but, just as an example, my pronouns are like the weather. They change depending on how I feel, and that's okay because they're my words. Sometimes I use all the pronouns I can think of, just as one example here.
Imagine reading that to a 5-year-old. They can't even tie their shoes yet, and you're teaching them that identity is a vibe. That methodology there is exactly how we ruin their kingdom and we fracture their minds. And we wonder why our children's mental health issues are at such an uptick. In this next clip, we've got a New York City teacher responding.
One example here,
let me put it this way,
Go ahead,
Martha, and I think that this will be shocking to you. These would not be the books I would be reading as a classroom teacher to kids who are 4 to 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I say this, I went through the New York City public school system. I was a teacher during when we had the big issue around Heather Has 2 Mommies. And I think when you don't actually make sure that things are age appropriate and we don't actually have sufficient conversations with teachers and parents in terms of how we accept differences, then you have situations like this right now.
Even this New York City teacher sees the insanity, but activists, they would rather sue than listen to the people that actually are raising our kids and spending most of the day with them. In this next clip, we've got Gays Against Groomers, a Wall Street Journal excerpt. Gays Against Groomers. SCOTUS is hearing Muhammad versus Taylor to decide if schools can force kids to read explicit content, while the lead plaintiffs are Muslim parents suing on behalf of their Islamic faith. This affects families of all types. No parent should be shut out of saying no to lewd content. This is exactly why they wrote an opinion in the Wall Street Journal titled, "Non-Religious Parents Have Rights Too." In Muhammad versus Taylor, the Supreme Court should hold that no declaration of faith is required to opt children out of sexual indoctrination lessons.
I'm going to teach gay sex to your 6-year-old, whether you like it or not, is a powerful argument to the Supreme Court. Maybe the most perverted argument the Supreme Court has ever heard. Judge, can Justice Alito set these lawyers on fire?
I don't think it's a good
idea.
idea.
Probably not. Can he call Chris Hansen to catch a predator? Because this is a confession. These people in Montgomery County are sick. And look at these titles, Dana. Pride Puppy, Uncle Bobby's Wedding. I did a deep dive. It's more than just gay romance. Drag queens, F is for feather boa, I is for intersex. And they've managed to do something no one's ever done in the history of civilization: unite Jews, Muslims, and Catholics together under one banner. Now, when all of these people have fought wars and killed each other for centuries, maybe you realize you're doing something wrong. You're right. The teachers now have this guidance session where they will facilitate the conversation and answer questions to the students. What kindergartner has a question about cross-dressing? And do you trust a purple-haired woman with a nose ring and a trans flag on her desk to have an honest conversation with your kid? Absolutely not.
This is way bigger than faith, people. This one's about sanity. When you've got Jews, Muslims, Christians, and even gays against groomers that are agreeing, you might be the problem. In this next excerpt, RFK Jr. addresses petroleum-based dyes.
Today, the FDA is taking action to remove petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and from medications. For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals. The scientific community has conducted a number of studies raising concerns about the correlation between petroleum-based synthetic dyes and several health conditions, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, genomic disruption, GI issues, as I've seen in the hospital, and allergic reactions.
We've got red 40, we've got yellow 5, and blue 2. This isn't a nutritional label, people. This is actually a lab report. We've been feeding our kids poison disguised as cereal for years. In our next feed, we're discussing Skittles and the EU's ingredients versus the US. This post shows the difference between what we have here in the US versus what the EU uses. The EU uses natural coloring, and guess what? Titanium dioxide is banned. Here in the US, red 40, yellow 5, blue 1, blue 2, and titanium dioxide. So, same company, same product, but different ingredients. Oh, I get it. So, we get chemicals and they get actual food. If you're at all wondering, this is what corporate greed looks like. Let's check our next feed on one of our pastime favorites, the Froot Loop comparison.
Food dye is just a no-brainer. Nobody wants to eat petroleum. Everybody knows there's enough science out there that we know it's terrible for you. That causes health problems, but also behavioral problems. Healthy person has 1,000 dreams. The sick person only has one. And right now, there's 60% of the people in this country who have only one dream. If they can make it through a day without pain, with energy, without having to take medications. And we are going to change that for our country.
I was growing up, I ate Froot Loops for breakfast every day, and I turned out just fine. Now, I would argue he turned out like a maniac. He's hyperactive and deranged, but does he have a point? What are these food dyes actually doing to kids especially?
Yeah, well, if you look at the ingredients for Froot Loops 20 years ago, it was very, very different than it is today. And today we use chemicals in Froot Loops that are banned in virtually every country in the world. So if you buy Froot Loops today in Canada, it is made with vegetable dyes. If you buy it here in the United States, it's made with petroleum synthetics.
And they wonder why American kids can't sit still and can't focus. Maybe it's not the kids, people. Maybe it's the crap that we're feeding them. Watch this next excerpt of industry usage and changes ahead.
Top 3 major food and beverage manufacturers, Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 billion. Secretary Kennedy met with some of those CEOs along with major fast food companies last month, telling them he wants to phase out 8 color additives by the time he leaves his post. A Wall Street Journal analysis found that more than 1 in 10 products contain at least one artificial food dye. More than 40% of items with dyes use 3 or more. So that is expected to mean potential big changes ahead.
RFK Jr., he's dropping bombs and throwing haymakers. He is blowing the lid off of this. And now come the big dogs. Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Nestle, they've all been put on notice, people. It's time to clean house. The bottom line here is, people, Trump's exposing Harvard. SCOTUS is now backing parents. RFK Jr. is calling out big food. And what's the left doing? Screaming while their system is crumbling. We are done playing nice, and now it's time to protect the kids. And if that offends you, then maybe you were the problem all along. They're losing control because we are finally waking up. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on that notifications bell so you don't miss another Truth Watch. Thank you. God bless.